Tyndale loved the theology of Martin Luther. And Luther was an abomination to Erasmus. And here the river divides, and Erasmus goes his comfortable philosophical way to his grave, esteemed by the Roman Catholic Church, and Tyndale goes to the flames, hated by the Roman Catholic Church. Scholarship won't get you crucified. Craftsmanship won't get you crucified. Just teaching the wrong things about the gospel or the right things will get you crucified. The book that Martin Luther wrote that he loved most was On the Bondage of the Will. Tyndale was with him 100%. Here's what Tyndale wrote on that regard. And the reason it's important is to set the stage for sovereign grace. A great phrase. Our will, Tyndale wrote, is locked and knit faster under the will of the devil than could 100,000 chains bind a man to a post. Because by nature we are evil, therefore we both think and do evil and are under vengeance, under the law, convict to eternal damnation by the law, and are contrary to the will of God. In all our will and in all things consent to the will of the fiend. It is not possible for a natural man to consent to the law, that it should be good or that God should be righteous, which maketh the law. End quote. So the view of human sinfulness that Luther wrote in The Bondage of the Will was echoed exactly by Tyndale's own grasp of our fallenness and our sin. Now Erasmus and Thomas More, who had a rabid hatred for William Tyndale. Man for All Seasons, you may have seen the movie or the play, makes much of Thomas More. He hated William Tyndale. He wrote 750,000 words and used scatological language to damn William Tyndale. He and Erasmus abominated this theology that I just read from Tyndale. And they operated at a kind of high, philosophical, academic, nuanced level that had a twang of irony and cleverness about it. Listen to what Daniel says. Something in the Enchiridion is missing. It is a masterpiece of humanist piety. But the activity of Christ in the Gospels, and especially His work of salvation, so strongly detailed there in the epistles of Paul, is largely missing. Christologically, where Luther thunders, Erasmus makes a sweet sound. What to Tyndale was an impregnable stronghold feels in the Enchiridion like a summer pavilion. That's what I remember when I was reading in college. When I read the two works of Erasmus that we had to read when I was a freshman in college, I heard no thunder. I was just fascinated by language. That doesn't change anybody. It makes prigs. The word sophomoric is an adjective not by accident. It means fool, right? By implication. Listen to this. Erasmus and Thomas More joked and bantered when Luther risked his life and nailed his 95 Theses to the wall. Erasmus wrote in a, quote, jocular letter including anti-papal games, witty satirical diatribes against abuses within the church, which both of them loved to make. It was all a big game. Now, I linger here over this difference between Tyndale and Erasmus because of how amazingly it sounds to me like today. Tyndale wrote his books and translated the New Testament, and there was a thundering effect. Erasmus wrote his, and there was an entertaining effect, a kind of, here's the words, highbrow, elitist, layered nuancing of church tradition. They satirized the monasteries, and so they had a ring of radical nature about them. Clerical abuses they criticized. But the gospel, what we were singing about a few minutes ago, it wasn't at the center. I'm not going to name any names, but there are elitist, cool, avant-garde, marginally evangelical writers today and scholars for whom what I'm about to read here, which was written to describe Erasmus and More, is amazingly parallel. Not only is there no fully realized Christ or devil in Erasmus' book, there's a touch of irony about it all, with a feeling of the writer cultivating a faintly superior ambiguity, as if to be dogmatic, for example, about the full theology of the work of Christ, was to be rather distasteful. I feel that in book after book today. To be robust and strong and full about what Christ has achieved feels rather distasteful. By contrast, William Tyndale is ferociously single-minded. The matter in hand, the immediate access of the soul to God without intermediary, is far too important for hints of faintly ironic superiority. Tyndale is as foursquare as a carpenter's tool. But in Erasmus' account of the origins of his book, there is a touch of the sort of layering of ironies found in the games with personae. End of quote from Daniel. It is ironic, and this is a warning. I hope you will hear from a dad-like guy for you. It is ironic and sad that today supposedly avant-garde Christian writers strike a cool, evasive, imprecise, artistic, superficially reformist pose of Erasmus and call it postmodern, when in fact it is totally pre-modern, because it is totally permanent. It happens in every single age. It's a clever way of writing for unsuspecting people like you who don't have a lot to measure it by, because your roots aren't deep yet in church history and in reading things from the 19th and 18th and 17th and 16th and 15th century, so that when you open up this contemporary postmodern thing, you say, what in the Sam Hill is new about that? Don't be duped. Be thoughtful, be thinker, go deep, know your history. What drove Tyndale to sing one note, I want the Bible available to you in English, to the plowboy in England in his day. I want it available. What drove him to that was his total conviction of the lostness, the bondage to sin. Blind, dead, damned, helpless people who need access to the gospel.